All righty. Well, hey, yeah, three, two, one. Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Monterey Bay Aquarium here live all across the social media landscape. We're over here on Facebook for the aquarium. We're also streaming live right now over to the Seafood Watch Facebook page. If you're wondering who's talking to you, my name's Patrick. I'm right here in the middle. I'll be running the program here. So if everything breaks, that'll be my fault here in the center. As you can see, I'm surrounded by amazing folks here, a panel to talk a little bit about the future of seafood, sustainability, aquaculture. We're going to be checking in with some Seafood Watch scientists here for the next hour. So just to introduce very quickly, we've got my better social media half over here in this corner for me. That is Emily. Emily's going to be looking for your questions over there. So send those to us on Facebook, on YouTube, on Periscope. Let us know what you want to know about seafood, and we'll see what we can do. And then over here to this side, we've got another facilitator. We've got Ryan here. Ryan is with Seafood Watch. And then surrounding me, we've got Birgitte over here, Fini down here,
Hi.
Wendy as well. And I'm going to just throw it to Ryan here real quick if you want to introduce yourself and then introduce the esteemed panel. And we'll have the panelists kind of introduce themselves, their work, and their role. And then we will get started. But Ryan, take it away.
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. Completely distracted. My dog just opened the door. I don't know how he did it. My name's Ryan. I'm from Seafood Watch, and I'm really excited today to introduce some of our scientists. We work with people around the world. The people that are on the call today are some of my favorites. We have Birgitte, Fini, and Wendy, and I will take you through, I will let them introduce themselves, but just so you all know, Seafood Watch is a program at the Monterey Bay Aquarium, and we really focus on the sustainability of farmed and wild seafood. That's fisheries and aquaculture. And the people on this call are experts in some or all of those things. And so we're just really, really excited to chat with them today. And just because I know we're the best, Wendy, why don't we start with you? Can you tell people about yourself and how you got here and why you love your work?
Okay, well, that's okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Wendy Norden. I'm the director of the Seafood Watch Science Program. And essentially, I oversee all the work we do on the science we develop around sustainability of fisheries and aquaculture around the world. I'm excited to come to work every day because I work with amazing people who you'll meet a little bit more today. And just a little bit about my background. I mean, I got started several years ago, and I really started out as a field biologist. So I've got degrees in marine ecology and graduate degrees in that as well. And I started off my career as a field biologist, really mostly underwater, working on things like habitat and looking at things like ecosystem services. And then my husband got a job in New Zealand. So we ended up moving there for a few years. And I had to kind of recreate what my job was going to be. And so what I found there was a position to look at and work with the industry on solving some of the major issues they have around fishing and aquaculture in that country. And so that really turned me on to understanding how I could use my ecological background in more problem solving and working more directly with industry to solve some of these very complex issues and working together on that. And so from there, it's really been a trajectory towards this kind of work I'm doing now with Seafood Watch. And it's exciting. I learn every day and work with some amazing people. So thanks.
That's awesome. Hey, just so you know, Wendy, in the middle of that, we just had a pop-up show up here. We have another panelist, Furqan, who is having some technical difficulties. So in case you folks out there at home were wondering, there's a little pop-up there in our Zoom. We're trying to get Furqan here and on the line here. But thank you so much, Wendy. I just wanted to interrupt real quick, just in case you watch this back and you're just like, why is there a menu over my face right now? Sorry, Wendy. Like, thank you so much for the
It's okay. It's
intro.
okay.
All right, Ryan, who's next here?
Just because she's on my right, Birgitte, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit how you ended up where you're at right now?
Thanks. Yeah, so my name is Birgitte Poulsen, and I'm an independent social development advisor consultant. And I usually, in these kinds of fora, I say I don't know the first thing about fish. Really not. Because my background is in human rights and social development issues, and I've worked for a long time for the UN, with different consulting companies, and for the last roughly 10 years I've been running my own little one-woman show consulting on particularly elimination of child labor and forced labor and any other thing human rights and social development. And I, by sheer coincidence, some years back, I ended up in Thailand working on a project on child labor in the shrimp industry, just as everything exploded around seafood in Thailand, because there were reports that I'm sure many of you saw in the media about forced labor on board Thai fishing vessels. And from there on, I never really looked back. I started working on seafood and sustainable seafood, including with my favorite people here at the Monterey Bay Aquarium, of course. And one of the reasons that I love going to work every day is, of course, that I think it makes a difference. And it means a lot to me also because I love seafood. I eat fish, I eat shellfish, and I don't want to eat stuff that's not responsibly produced, that's not, that's produced by people who work in abysmal working conditions, who aren't making a decent living of it, and that's plundering our seas and our other resources. So yeah, I love my work.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. That's a lot of different things there that you're interested in.
Oh yeah.
On the side. Perfect. All right. Well, we'll cover Fini, and then Furqan. If you're hearing me right now, you're still in the waiting room until we cover Fini here, and then we'll see if we can bring you in. But Fini, by the way, joining us from Indonesia right now. It is nearing 1 a.m. Over there. So selamat malam. Thank you for being here. All right, Fini, take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Patrick. So I'm based in Jakarta. So it's around 1 a.m. right now in Jakarta, but I'm still look pretty, right? So
Yes.
So I'm the senior fellow for the Sustainable Fisheries for Seafood Watch program. I worked for Seafood Watch this last 1 year. Previously, I worked for so many projects and programs, but mostly in Indonesia area for almost 20 years, mostly working on the marine and fisheries issues. I work on the various issues on marine and coastal management, starting from the reef fish, coral reefs, mangroves, but mostly the human or the local communities are the center of the issues that I'm working on this whole years. So I also work a lot on the traceability or the supply chain management of the fisheries. So that's why, though I'm not going to say that I'm mastering on these issues on this field, but I can say that I've already worked on this for more than 7 years. So however, though I work a lot with the mama fish, papa fish, brother fish, and fish friends, but my my big concern is on the on those living around the coastal areas, on the people that should get the most benefit of the fish resources. That's why I work a lot with the fishermen, work a lot with the fisherwomen, work a lot with the wives of the fishermen, and I during my works I also visit more than 25 provinces in Indonesia.
Wow.
From the western part of Indonesia in Aceh to the eastern part of Indonesia in Papua. So in many places I met so many people with so many background, with so many interests, and this is enrich my not only my knowledge but also my point of view on this human being living in the area. So
Wow.
I think that's mostly my background and why I fall in love with this field.
That's amazing. I just love just how much all of you have just described as far as like, this talk is about seafood, and I feel like most people, when they hear seafood, it's something on a menu. They're going to go out for dinner, but already just what you have all described, it's so much more than just the fish in front of you. It's so many different aspects, from the community of people to just all the scientists here, and everybody working to understand what's going on in the ocean so that people can benefit and everything. So it's a lot more than just whatever, fish and pasta people might be thinking about. Seafood is much bigger than that. Okay, we're gonna try something super technical, Emily, before we get to you and your questions. I'm gonna see if we can get Furqan in here. If it doesn't happen, sorry, buddy. But we've all been there. This is the world of Zooming. So, all right, Furqan is in. We will see if we get video and him online here in just. Oh my goodness!
See it
yes!
trying. Yeah!
Coming to you live from the ocean, guys.
We did it. Thanks for joining us.
Finally,
Furqan.
we have Furqan.
Yes.
The big entrance for Con.
Yes. Thanks, Fini.
Nice. All right. Well, hey, you're up. Can you tell us a little bit about who you are and your science? What you do out there studying seafood?
Yeah, cool. Well, yeah, so things are pretty blue down here, but as you can see around me. But what I'm doing is, so my name is Furqan, and I'm interested in aquaculture. My interest in kind of fisheries started as actually, so I'm going to do a little bit of a backwards thing of kind of like explaining how I got to where I am now,
Sure.
from where I came from, instead of just going straight into what I'm doing right now. So my interest in fisheries started during a placement, which at the time did not realize how much it would set the course of my professional life. But I was in the Philippines and World Fish Center, which for those of you who don't know, is a NGO, research NGO that does research on fisheries and aquaculture with the aim of poverty alleviation. So I lived in Philippines. I worked there on marine protected area management. And eventually I used that experience to inform actually my PhD research later on, which focused on coastal fishing communities in Cambodia. So through both my professional life and academia, I've
Furqan, we just lost your audio there. Oh no. Hold on. Production side here. Sorry, Furqan. We just lost your audio over there.
No.
Oh.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now. All right.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah. I connect my AirPods today to my laptop, and Apple is trying to take over my Zoom meeting. But all right. So yeah, both through my professional life and academia, I developed an interest in fisheries, and then I kind of developed that interest into fisheries broadly, and then that's led to where I am now, which is as a postdoctoral researcher at Wageningen University in the Netherlands, where I'm doing research on better understanding the social processes, rules and regulations, and capabilities that determine how we farm seafood around the world. So what we call, or what we term, aquaculture governance, in a nutshell.
Gotcha. Awesome.
No,
Cool.
I
Well,
can't hear you guys now.
can you hear us? No?
Oh,
All right.
no.
Oh, well, this is the world that we live in right now. Oh, and now that we're bumped up here, I need to take the logo off of Ryan's face here, maybe. Great. Well, thank you so much for those intros. Thanks. I'm glad that we have this whole panel. We're joining in from all across the world, literally waving to the other side of the Pacific from here. To Fini and everybody. So thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for sharing your expertise. We look forward to hearing a little bit more about all of your work and different things. But Emily, we've been live here for about 15 minutes, give or take. So I'm sure that there's already been some questions here from the audience. What are the folks out there wanting to know to ask our panel here?
Yeah, no, we have had some awesome questions coming in. Just super impressed by the engagement that we've had with our audience so far. So I hope that you're all ready to answer these questions today. We'll start out with an easy one, I hope, which is in everyone's opinions. I mean, you're all working in such specific niches when it comes to the sustainability of seafood. So what is your definition of sustainable seafood, and how can we ensure that we're eating seafood in a way that is sustainable in your minds?
Very small
Wait.
question off the bat. Very small.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who feels like going first? Furqan, you want to go?
Yeah, I think, I mean, I can answer that in the sense of reflecting sort of the trends in the evolution of sustainable seafood, or how we understand seafood production and consumption. I think that sustainable seafood means both being ecologically and socially responsible in how we produce, consume, and sort of treat the way we grow or supply our seafood. And I think that's an important aspect to emphasize, right? Because you have the ecology side where it looks at like how many, like flock density and all these other specific aquaculture metrics, where you look at how many organisms you can cram into a space and all these things. But then we have to step back and realize that this is also a social system that involves people, and that involves institutions that are involved with it, be they governments or civil society like Seafood Watch and others. And so I think that for me, sustainable seafood has, I guess, to use this idiom of two sides of this coin, where you have the seafood and then the people. And I think combined together, that creates a sort of sustainable seafood paradigm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would totally agree with that. Absolutely. And I would also just add to it a little bit and just say that I think environmental sustainability is directly linked to social sustainability as well, because if you have environmentally responsible seafood being produced, you have better jobs, hopefully better paying jobs, more secure jobs, which when you look at the seafood producing areas of the world, it's often areas that relying 100% on their protein coming from that source and their jobs and livelihoods. So it is very linked, I think, and we have to keep that in mind. And if you want to know how to source sustainable seafood, use the Seafood Watch program, our guide, our website. We'll give you all the information.
And adding to that, actually, I'd say also ask questions of the people that you buy your seafood from. Do they actually know who caught the seafood? Under what circumstances this happened? For me, sustainable I absolutely agree with Wendy and Furqan that it's an environmental issue and it's a social people issue. For me, one of the most important trades of sustainable seafood, if you like, is that it's transparent. Is that you can actually trace back to where it came from. So you can trace the product, but you can also trace how it was produced and by whom and under what conditions.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would like to add something in a simple way. This is what I usually talk with local people. Yeah, when we are talking about the sustainability, of course they don't really understand the terminology, but in a simple way, we will say about the activity. The sustainability is when the people still be able to get the benefit from the resources, not only today, not only tomorrow, not only next week or next month, but for the rest of their life. That's the most important thing. And this benefit from the nature will come back to them as sustainability of the economic or the production of their daily activities. And by having the sustainability of the production, it will end up with the better livelihood for the local community. When I'm talking about local community here, the fishers of the farmers who are get the benefit from the nature, whether they are living next to the nature, next to the resources, or in the area of the resources itself. So that's in a simple way of the meaning of the sustainability.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. And raises the idea of having our fish and eating them too. So having them with us and then being able to go into the future and have them sustain people. I think at least for here at the aquarium, we often get this question and kind of this presumption. So first of all, why even eat seafood? Like, isn't there an option to just don't eat seafood, and so therefore there's no problem with seafood? We often get that question of, well, just you could choose not to eat seafood, right? And it's a little bit more complicated than that. And then the other thing too is that when people come and visit the aquarium, Cannery Road, the Monterey area, it's often associated with, oh, I'm going to go grab some seafood. I'm going to go to the ocean and therefore eat some seafood. And I think most people would be very surprised to know that the seafood that they're eating in view of the ocean is not necessarily seafood caught from that water right there next to them. And so there's this association with seafood and location that it is not really there. And then there's also the idea of why, just don't eat seafood, right? I don't know, Emily, if those are questions from the audience there. Those are two things that come to mind there, and we can get to that. But Emily, was that in the audience too?
Absolutely. That's one of the number one questions that we get at the aquarium is just why do we continue to eat seafood when we know that there are so many challenges when it comes to fishing and farming sustainable seafood. So I don't know if we want to hop on that question there.
I'm just here to help guide along the conversation, Ryan. But I would just love to say, when the panelists address this question, first off, I will add, to go vegan is a wonderful option, and you can absolutely do that. And, that respect that all the way. I think that even our conversation today, we've talked about the value of fish, and we've talked about it as a protein source. And I think in America, especially, I'll just speak for the United States, it's protein, right? Like, it's a healthy protein. Oh, did I get my salmon after my workout or whatever it is? But there's this component of nutrition that is critical for billions of people around the world, right, for seafood. And I would love the people on this call who know much more about that to maybe speak to that. Right. Because I think that's at the heart of why, even if you personally choose to go vegan, sustainable seafood is a requirement for the world. So if you guys could talk to that, that'd be great.
Sure. I can start, and then I'm sure my fellow panelists can add on to whatever I'm saying. So sure. I think, Ryan's right. Obviously it's an option out there for sure to not eat it, as well. But seafood is a tremendously, nutritious protein source with omega fatty acids, and and so people, it is quite a healthy option. It also produces livelihoods for 60 million people around the world. And so it's also very important to sort of economic well-being of communities and people as well. And it can be done in a very good way. We hear all the bad stories, and there's quite a few bad stories out there around seafood production, around harvesting, around farming. But there's also equally some really good stories as well about how it supports communities, how it's, can be done in a really good way that you can feel really good about eating and tell that story. About what, eating some shrimp from some areas, what actually means to how many kids go to school because of that. So I think there's so many areas. I mean, bad news travels really fast. I think we as a community have to tell better stories about what it does, not only just healthy for people eating it, but for the people who actually are producing it in a really good way. So I'll just rest there and let you guys take it from there.
Yeah, can I?
Go ahead, Fini.
No, I just wanna bring the ironic story from the field, if it's okay. Yeah. Talking about the seafood, especially because I'm in a production country where we produce and provide 70 to 90% of the fish commodity in the U.S. market, at least, yeah, wow, in the U.S. market. The ironic story is, as a producer, especially I'm talking about the small scale fishers and small scale farmers. Yeah, as the producer, the family of the fishers or the family of the farmer are not eating a good quality fish, because the good quality fish will be sent out to the market because its price, they can get the best price from the prime products of what they caught. However, they still have seafood, not only fish, but all of the seafood on their plate. But this like the second or third quality of the fish that being caught. Or sometimes they have to go to the traditional market to get the third or fourth quality of the fishes. However, by buying the seafood in the market, let's say in the US market, by the people in America, those people in United States will contribute to these small scale families in somewhere in remote areas in Indonesia. So this family can put their children to the school, can manage the health of the families and others. Even though the ironic story is the families never taste the prime products that the father, that the fisher or the farmer get every day. That's in life there is a good and bad stories, so that's fair enough.
Yeah. No, that's fascinating, and an aspect of that seafood culture that that folks probably don't think too much about. I think it's similar to farming communities, agricultural communities, and how they see the work that they put in, and it goes out, and then most of the consumers are completely separate from the work that goes into it, and the communities that are affected by those by those prices. Here in Monterey County, we have the Salinas Valley right there, and just a lot of people hear about that as the salad bowl of the world, of America at least, the salad bowl, and how many people actually know what it's like to work on those farms. So with the seafood, that was something that I learned coming to the aquarium, is how international seafood is, how everything is moving around all the time, and especially in producing countries, how the entire landscape changes with production there of aquaculture, shrimp, or anything, and just completely from satellite images you can see all these individual pockets of people producing that. And so your shrimp cocktail, your $30 anniversary entree of seafood is maybe directly tied to that small family many time zones away, working at their craft, and it just goes off, and then so yeah, really, really amazing.
And I think it's really, really fascinating when you're based in one of the import countries, to think that that shrimp on your plate may have come from a remote area in Indonesia. And I think one of the things that's gratifying, at least for me, is to know that it provides a livelihood opportunity in remote areas where there are fewer opportunities than there are in more urban areas. So very often in the seafood producing areas, you're actually looking at people making a decent living in an environment that could be rather challenging otherwise if there wasn't seafood production. And for me, that's a really good reason to keep eating seafood. It's I completely get why you would choose not to. But for me, knowing that when I eat shrimp or tuna or, other seafood, I'm actually creating employment, and steady, valuable employment is quite a nice thing to know.
Right. And sorry, go for it, Furqan.
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to add that it's a really interesting question, and I was reflecting on it while everybody was talking. And I think the actual question itself, it comes it actually, I mean, putting my international development hat on, it actually comes from a point of privilege, right? Like to be able to even ask, should we even eat fish, comes from a huge point of privilege. I think that listeners and all of us should recognize that the fact that that implies we have a choice. And the reality is that, you know, for many countries like Indonesia and Cambodia, where I did my PhD work, is that fish is the only source of protein for millions of people in the world, right? And so these people don't have a choice, and they have to eat fish. And the coastal fishing communities that I lived in the villages, that was their primary source of protein, along with other seafood like fish, crab, etc. I think it's also important to recognize the intricate connection, I think, like what you were saying, Patrick, to the culture and how seafood is tied to culture, and that we can ask this question because we can choose from, I guess, like, you know, strip loin steak or, you know, Peking duck or whatever these protein, elaborate protein sources are. So that's an important thing to recognize, I think.
Mhm.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really great yeah, thank you to the panel for really kind of describing it's not as simple as, you know, well, you know, if you have that choice to eat fish, not to eat fish, you know, completely up to you, but just recognizing that seafood is such a huge global industry that ties billions of people together, trillions of dollars out there in the market, and how that sustainability part, making working conditions and fish stocks able to maintain people and support people instead of taking advantage of people, is why it's so critical, because seafood is not going away anytime soon, as long as we live on a water planet, and we enjoy tasty proteins and such as a species. And I mean I like that, and I think in the future people will still enjoy seafood. Emily, get me out of this hole that I'm digging. Trying to
I will.
transition to
I'm
you.
here. I will be your life buoy, your little
Okay, thank you.
lifesaver over here.
Is there a question from the audience?
There is, and it's
Patrick,
actually
stop talking.
If we ignore what you said right there, this is a perfect segue
Yeah.
into the next question that we have, because when we're talking about sustainable seafood, as we've heard from all of you, it's not just looking at the seafood itself. We're looking at seafood as a whole. We're looking at it from the way that it impacts our economies, the way that it impacts people, the way that it impacts the environment too. We want to make sure that there is enough fish and seafood out there in the ocean for the animals to eat, as well as helping to sustain ourselves up here on land. But when we look at the types of seafood that there are in the market, very often we hear about 4, maybe 5 fish, or different types of seafood. We always hear about, you know, like tuna and salmon. All these animals are a little bit higher up on the food chain. So we had a great question about kind of fishing down the food chain, and why don't we see fish like herring or sardines as often as we do, you know, as other fish in the market? Is it a matter of marketing? Is it cultural? Is it just availability? So yeah, it was a great question that we had from our audience there.
That is a great question. And again, I'll start and then sort of kick it off to everyone else. I mean, I think speaking from the US, right, we only eat a certain amount of seafood. We really like our whitefish, you know, we like tuna, canned tuna, we like canned crab, you know, we like salmon. And really that's the bulk of what people eat in the United States. So other countries though, you know, things like herring, like my family's from Sweden, and originally we had, you know, herring. Not my favorite as a kid. I was like, oh no, it's Christmas Eve and we're gonna have a bunch of herring.
I was raised on herring. I have
other
to say.
places, like, you know, like love it. I mean, this question's fantastic because I think it's really gets at like the food web dynamics and all that, and it's really important. You know, we eat much higher on the food web, but other countries don't as much. You know, so it is a marketing thing here. I wish we would expand our palate in this country, to be honest, and explore more options. But maybe Birgitte, you want to take it from here because you're based in the.
Somebody said herring and I got very excited, you know.
Yeah,
I'm Danish. We love our herring and we pickle them. It's an acquired taste, I can promise you that.
I went to high school in Sweden, and I do remember that first year. My second meal in Sweden was surströmming.
Oh yeah, no, the Swedes take it to the next level. I have to say, even I can't do that.
For those of you unfamiliar, surströmming means sour herring, and it is the herring that is left in the can until it's fermented and it's ready to explode, and you have to open it up outside, otherwise it'll stink up the entire house and you'll never get it out of your clothes. And I was told not to breathe in when I ate it, and I was like, this is an interesting country I am becoming a part of. And then around the holidays, having the pickled herring with the berries and then the mustard and the cream sauce, that is yes.
No, that's lovely.
Yeah.
But the surströmming, if anything, is proof that seafood is cultural, right?
Right.
And I was just thinking when you were speaking, Wendy, that because one of the upcoming seafood items here is seaweed. And that's completely outside of our culture. We'll eat mackerel and herring and salmon and lobster, shrimp, whatever, but the sea vegetable kind of thing is something that we'll leave that to the Japanese guys. We'll have it with the sushi. That's it. And it's increasingly becoming a popular item and something that's actually taking off. And that has taken years and years and years of changing our minds to say this isn't gross, it's actually rather delicious. So yeah, I think it's a cultural thing, very much so. And I agree with you, Wendy. Marketing means a lot in this respect.
Yeah, but I would like to also add from other perspective on the question. I also understand that for some species, it's actually already depleted right now, especially at the resourcing countries, where the population are already very much overfished because of lots of the illegal fishing activities. So that's also what a lot of other countries put on concern for the fisheries at the producing country. So I think if we don't do anything to that situation, just like what Seafood Watch do so far with providing recommendation to certain species to the market, it could be one day, maybe 5, 10, or 20 years from now, some species will be absent in the market forever. That will happen. That's why actually what I'm trying to also talk from the previous question is, yes, please eat a lot of fish. Yes, please eat the papa fish, the mama fish, the brother fish, the French fish, any kind of seafood. Please eat them. Because you are contributing not only to in order to get the protein, the animal protein from the fish, but you also contributing to the local families, to the local communities. However, but please be aware of the as Birgitte has already mentioned previously, that there is traceability of the fish. Please be aware of the where the fish come from. Please make sure that the fish are the product that you have are the product that have the recommendation from the recognized organization or recognized parties. So that's the serious part of my explanation on this question.
No, and that's perfect. I think what you're describing there, as far as we want to spread out our impact on the ocean instead of focusing so heavily on certain species, because that depletes them in the wild, and then you're forced to then eat down the food chain. And so eating down the food chain already, so spreading out your impact is not only, you know, good for the ocean and your own palate, but also if you don't do that, you're gonna have to do that in the future. You know, there's a lot of different people that will say, well, you know, in the future we'll just be eating jellyfish because that's all that'll be left. So that's where that sustainability is so important, and spreading out that impact. I think a lot about how, you know, if you roast a chicken and then you make chicken stock out of it, you're getting like more out of the whole thing. And so if you only focus on like, well, I just want like this part or this part of the food, it's less efficient, it's less nutritious, just in general. So having all that seafood be available, you have to make sure that everything is well regulated, but also know that if you don't stop with the top level, you're going to wind up with the lower level anyway. And that's not, you know, and that's not very, that's not sustainable. That's not what we hear. Furqan, did you have anything to add to this particular thing? Sorry.
Just had a quick tip for whoever asked this question, some actionable information, asking about the food web and where we're eating, which way on the food web. Tilapia is an herbivorous fish, and that's a farmed fish that's extremely popular in export markets, and comes a lot of it comes from Vietnam. So whoever asked that question, if you're in the seafood aisle trying to think of which fish is the lower on the food chain, go for the tilapia, make a little tilapia steak or whatever you want to do, then you'll feel better about yourself.
There you go. Brigitte, it looked like you had maybe something you wanted to add?
I wanted to just add a little bit to what Fini was saying, because when you pick the tilapia and make, it's great for fish cakes, by the way, over the fish stocks that are depleting, and that might also be fished illegally, you're also contributing to improving people's livelihoods and people's working conditions and the fulfillment of their human rights, because we see a very direct link between some of the very severe forms of abuse and illegal fishing, and in fact also overfishing. The depletion of stocks and illegal fishing is one of the fundamental drivers of forced labor, for example, in the seafood industry. And sometimes it's not necessarily a direct driver, but it's, if you have, Fini, you can talk to this much more than I can probably, but if you have a situation where overfishing or even illegal fishing is depleting the fish stock, you're removing the livelihoods from the small-scale fishers. They're contributing increasingly sometimes also to the overfishing, because they have to take whatever they can get out of the sea to feed themselves and their kids. And eventually they're going to run out of options, and they'll be very, very easy prey for recruiters who are using some very unsavory methods to get them on board fishing vessels, where they end up in quite severe labor conditions and sometimes in outright forced labor. So if you want to tackle severe issues like forced labor, it can be very difficult to do that as an individual consumer. You can ask questions of your fish vendors and so on, as I was saying, but actually eating right and choosing the food and lower down the food chain can also contribute to preserving people's livelihood and protecting vulnerable people from human rights abuse.
That is such a fascinating thing to think about, how what you're eating can affect somebody, like the way that somebody is living across the world, providing you that food. I think we all, we talk about things like, mining for cell phones, technology, things like that. And you start seeing, as there's exploitation that happens if things aren't properly vetted, if they're not official and everything. And so, I think that's just such a fascinating thing to think about seafood. So many of us just have this association with seafood as like, oh, cool, like some, this tasty thing that I ate. But depending on how it gets to you, it could be the result of, a very, very dark part of how these international systems can can function with lack of oversight, lack of accountability. So yeah, that sustainable seafood, and Trooper agrees. The pup. It's so important to get right in that whole system. In the food chain, basically of sustainable seafood. Every part is connected there. So, thank you for bringing that up. I'm looking. I can't believe it's already been like 46 minutes that we've been talking to you all. This is just so fascinating. We have been ignoring the questions out there, so I want to get to Emily.
Yes.
Emily, what do the folks want to know out there related to that? Because we've covered a lot of different things here. Or what does Trooper want to contribute?
Oh, Trooper is getting treats for our training in learning the quiet command. She has gotten a lot of practice. Apparently not enough practice.
Trooper, stop.
Oh, not enough treats.
Listen, just because the audience right now wants you to get extra treats, Trooper, like, come on.
Yeah, it's true. It's sometimes I think that now she's trained that if she barks and then stops, that does mean that she gets a treat, so she barks more. But well, that's a different story. So back to seafood. Oh my goodness. Okay, let's loop back around here, back on track.
Center.
Yeah, we're recentering here. We're talking about seafood. We're talking about the questions that have been coming in from our audience here, and I loved the whole conversation leading up to this, because we've been talking a lot about farmed seafood, and more people are going to their markets and seeing farmed seafood options available to them. So there are a lot of questions out there about, are all of those farmed options the best choices for me and my family? Are farmed fish and other farmed seafoods inherently sustainable? Are they unsustainable? What is the future of farmed seafood, and how is it impacting our choices that we have right now?
Yeah, so that's a great question. When you look at seafood production around the world, so since the 70s, wild capture fish has kind of plateaued. We aren't creating more wild fish out there. So we kind of are at the level of what we can catch, right? So, and the growth in the seafood sector has really been around farmed seafood. It is growing like every year by 20, 30% of production around the world. And in sometimes areas where maybe the good governance isn't in place. Like, so I look at you, Furqan, to help out with that, right? And so, or maybe there's some social issues there. But every single seafood item can inherently be sustainable. Like there is a pathway towards success on all these situations. Right now, not every production type is currently sustainable, according to Seafood Watch at this point, but a lot is out there. So there's many choices. So the goals that we have as a program really are to highlight and promote the best performers out there, and help to work to drive improvement in the ones that need more help. Because hopefully what that does is that you have better environmental performance, you have better social performance, better jobs. Seafood is the most highly traded commodity in the world. It's traded all over the place. We import the majority of the seafood we eat in this country. So we've got a responsibility to make sure that sustainability is occurring in these practices. But I think we also have a responsibility to help producers to get there along the way, because not everyone knows how to. No one sets out in their daily life to say, I'm going to do the worst job I can do and farm the worst way I can. Like these people that, we meet around the world, all of us, right? They are proud of their industry. They are doing the best job they can. Sometimes they don't know what the best job is. And sometimes we don't know how to help them. So it's about listening, working together, and having more of a global movement towards sustainability. So we're all kind of benefiting from this.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess since I'm aquaculture man or
AGI man.
AGI man, yes. I was just gonna jump on that question as well.
Is that your disguise for Halloween, by the way? Aquaculture man? Like, is that you walking around with a bunch of shrimp farms on your shoulders or something?
Pretty much, yeah.
That's awesome.
It's just it's like I grew up in the U.S., so it's like Long John Silver's all you can eat shrimp or something like that. I don't know, but sustainably. No, but what I wanted to say is, in response to that question, is first unequivocally say that, to the person who asked the question and to who was listening, is that please don't automatically assume that farmed seafood or equals bad, or equals unsustainable, because I think that there's been a lot of information out there based on a few, specific incidents that have really and it's sort of like news, right? Or information, we pay attention or remember more bad stuff than good stuff. Like, if your life's going great, but then one thing happens in the day, you feel like that is the worst thing in the world. And so I think that it's important to realize that not all farm seafood or farm seafood does not equal bad. And in fact, the fact that Wendy raised the point about the importance of aquaculture, because we get over half of our seafood from aquaculture, right? So it's becoming something really an important area, and it's only going to increase because we have increasing urbanization and demand from other countries, not just the United States, which of course will continue, but we have other countries where we have growing middle class, and we're going to get more demand from there as well. So I think that's an important point. And, there are tools like Wendy outlined, like the Seafood Watch app, but there's also associations like the Aquaculture Stewardship Council, and organizations that are working on improving sustainably farmed seafood.
Excellent.
Yeah, I would like to add some more information from aquaculture in Indonesia. You know that the shrimp fisheries is the highest, the top rank of fish products from Indonesia. Uh, um, the production of wild capture shrimp from Indonesia is being replaced by the farmed shrimp fisheries since I think 1990s. Though we have had experienced the up and down situation on this aquaculture fisheries during the transition period of these two type of fisheries in late 90s to early 2000. However, we are now more improved on these fisheries, on this aquaculture shrimp fisheries in Indonesia, especially for those who use the traditional system. For instance, for the tiger prawn or monodon shrimp aquaculture. It's a very traditional way of practices. They use very minimum pellets, very minimum medication for fish, and very minimum treat. And most of these farmers also try to have the silviculture fisheries. If Furqan perhaps can explain more on this. Silviculture fisheries is something like you practice not only the shrimp farming, but sometimes you also put the milkfish on the ponds, and sometimes you also grow the mangroves ponds in the mangrove in the ponds, in the middle of the ponds, or in the dikes of the pond. So in terms of the environment, in fact, this kind of fisheries is increasing the environment itself. So I agree with Wendy and Furqan that aquaculture is not equal with the pet fisheries. Although I have to also admit that at some part of places there are still practices that is not considering the sustainability, is not considering the environment in the ecosystem of the environment. However, we cannot put it as equal situation, like aquaculture with the pet fisheries.
Yeah,
We get this question. Oh, sorry.
No, go for it, Ryan.
We get this question all the time, and I've been with Seafood Watch for about a decade. I answer all the questions that come in, and originally it was farmed versus wild, but over the decade, it's really been about farmed salmon versus wild salmon. And that seems to be where the United States public's attention is. And I think most of just going back to Furqan asking questions about this particular question, most people think about farmed salmon in the United States. And I would just love to stress that that's a huge topic that I actually think is fascinating. I would love to do another hour on some point, but farm salmon is a drop in the bucket, right? And when we're talking about seafood production over the entire world, farm salmon is a blip on the radar. It's easy to forget that if in the United States, especially if you're on the West Coast, but that's a very, very small part of the story. It's an important one, but this conversation is much bigger. I mean, think about farm seaweed alone, which is huge. That production is an incredibly large portion of the entire seafood pie, if you will. And that's all, for the most part, green rated.
Yeah. And I mean, so, to this point, and I think, just looking at the time here, just like, I can't believe an hour has gone by. But if you folks take anything away from this watching, is that there's no simple answer to seafood. Farmed equals bad equals good, wild equals good equals bad. Any of those dichotomies that you might have in your head about like, this is good, this is bad, this is how seafood, this is how that whole thing works. It gets very, very complicated the second that you peel back just a little layer. Seafood is such an I can't think of a more complicated interwoven web of product on the planet that we all think we kind of understand, especially, looking out over the ocean coming to Monterey Bay. It's so complex, so diverse. So if you take anything away from this, is that you're gonna have to come back and watch the next hour that we do, because we're not gonna solve it here right away. Lots of cool things there. Emily,
yes.
Looking at the time, I think it's almost time to wrap up. What's a final question to guide us home?
Well, first, before we kind of wrap up and take us home right now, we had so many incredible questions coming in across our social media channels from Facebook and YouTube. And I just want to encourage everyone, because I know that we weren't able to answer all of them. Sorry, Ryan, I'm going to make your job more difficult here. Send those questions on over to our Seafood Watch social media channels. They're on Facebook, they're on Instagram, they're on Twitter. Ryan is there. He is going to be answering all of your questions, bothering all of these scientists to get more information, to make sure that we're answering those questions as thoroughly as we can to really help you, because like you said, Patrick, it is such an intricate and interwoven topic. And so we want to make sure that we're answering all of those questions for you. But I thought that a question that we like to ask everyone on all of our live streams here is, if you could talk to your younger self, or if you could talk to anyone out there right now who might be interested in getting into a career in fisheries and aquaculture and sustainable seafood, what advice would you give them, and what are you most excited about the future of seafood? What do you want those kids out there today who are, getting excited about sustainable fisheries? What do you hope that they can accomplish in the future, or that you can keep on accomplishing? And Trooper agrees again.
That's right, Trooper.
Trooper's excited. She's here to be the next Seafood Watch scientist.
She's got some ideas.
Well, I would say to anybody looking at a career in this, I mean, it's truly amazing. And to my younger self, I would say, go for it. Don't be afraid. Like, there's so much to learn and so much to know, and you can contribute to making the world a better place. And that sounds a little cheesy, but it is so true. I learn every single day, and I've been at this for almost 25 years. Like, every day I learn more and more. And don't be afraid to fail and just go for it, essentially. And there's some amazing people to work with. I think I am super hopeful. Like, I've come from a place where it used to be that NGOs and industry often were battling all the time. And so it was hard to have a conversation. I think now we're in a place where everyone's at the table talking and making progress. And so we can't make progress without industry working together. We might not always agree, but I think it's so hopeful in the future that we can work together to solve these really complex challenges. And I see that going forward and being much better in the future as well.
Awesome.
I can jump off of that actually very easily by saying that I have two pieces of advice, I guess, or yeah, for the people listening and the ones who asked that question. One is to stay curious. I think it's an extremely important element. Again, we've just hit on the tip of the iceberg in a lot of these issues when it comes to, labor standards and fisheries, like Birgitte mentioned, or governance challenges, which is what I'm focusing on, and livelihoods, which is what Fini talked about. There's so many different dimensions. So I think stay curious, really educate yourself, and get a really good understanding of the industry, because what that will do is that will make you sort of see things and say, well, why is it this way and not this way? And what can be improved here? Where are the gaps, for example? And then that will create space and hopefully inspiration for you to contribute to that area yourself, 5 years down the line or whatever that is. And then the second thing relates to what Wendy says in the infamous words of Dora from Finding Nemo: just keep swimming, just keep swimming.
Awesome. Always a good reference to throw out a little bit of Nemo there. Birgitte or Fini?
Yeah, I would like to also give an example story from Indonesia. Yeah, I worked in this area for almost 20 years, and I feel that my time is perhaps in the next 5 or not more than 10 years after after this year. I might want to relax on the beach, having my playing with my cats, and so I really would like to have someone, as I told Wendy on the other day. I really would like to see the juvenile of the environmentalist, working very hard. So because that's not happen in Indonesia right now. It's very, very difficult to find someone to work on this field. And what I learned is the students who are now on the faculty of marine science and fisheries they don't have any interest to work on this field. That's actually a big question mark for me. However, the fact that I have a background that is very far from these issues, my background is economic, my background is the business, but I'm working in this fisheries issues, giving me, I would like to give a challenge to those juveniles to as the Finding Nemo said, that keep doing, keep working, and put your heart on this issues.
Awesome. So anybody out there watching, contact Fini. She's got openings here coming up in 5 years because she's got to go hang out on the beach. So thank you, Fini.
So yeah, I guess I'm like Wendy. I'm very excited that we're on a path to sustainable seafood. Actually, I think there's a long way to go still, but I certainly think that lots more people are on board with these issues now than they were 10 years ago. And that's very, very exciting. And I was in the same vein of advising keep going to my younger self and to young people out there. There's room for everybody. There's lots to do, and it really doesn't matter whether you're an economist like Fini, a political scientist like me, a marine biologist. We need all hands on deck, and we need lots of energy and drive. So yeah, young people, come forward.
Excellent. And I mean, with that, thank you so much for answering that. I did also just want to point out, just from the short amount of time that I've been able to spend with all of you, the fisheries can get very, very heavy, especially if you're thinking about you know, animals potentially, you know, going commercially extinct, as we talked about. We talk about, you know, slavery showing up in the seafood chain. So things can get really heavy real quick, and you all are deep into that. But what I've really enjoyed is how excited you all are, and like how ready you are to laugh and enjoy each other's company. And so we're after hours right now, so nobody who was really serious about the topic should still be here. So I just want to ask, I don't know, Furqan, I don't think you were in the Zoom call yet, but Fini has an amazing Easter egg photo of Wendy that, since I'm running the show, I can turn this on or off whenever. Fini, do you mind sharing that
Yes,
photo of
of
you
I
course.
hanging
kind of want
out?
to see this.
Wendy,
Yeah, you
Wendy,
hanging out
I've
with
got your,
Wendy over.
I've got your permission.
Look at it.
What is this rock concert about to
How
start?
great
Oh.
is that?
Yeah.
That is a Wendy every day in the office. Pre-COVID.
There
That
you
was
go. Yep,
every day.
pre-COVID. There's Wendy crushing it.
Yeah, I mean, singing some sort of ballad, huh?
I mean, look in the background. It says Seafood Watch. You know,
And the
assessment method.
USAID.
Yep.
It was a
So
very serious workshop.
It is a very serious workshop
An
with
unexpected
the local
concert.
government.
It was with the government, actually.
Yes, it was with
Built
the
in
local
karaoke
and
nights.
central government.
so anyway,
I love how
wanted
Wendy
to-
found a co-singer too, by the way.
yeah, we wanted to throw that out there just to show, you know, there's a lot of laughs and good times to be had in solidarity with your fellow fisheries scientists out there as well. Yeah, thank you, Fini, for sharing that. I do want to be mindful that it's 2 a.m. where you are, so you know, gotta rest up. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to our esteemed panel for being here, for walking us through that. Oh, I realize I've had the bug over Ryan's head the whole time. All right, there's Ryan. Thank you so much. Thank you, Emily, to the audience out there for sending those questions. Thank you to all of you. I'm going to put up this end slide here. Thank you so much for joining us here live on Facebook for Seafood Watch and the Monterey Bay Aquarium to talk a little bit with some Seafood Watch scientists about the future of seafood sustainability, and hope you enjoyed this time. Give us a like, give us a subscribe over here, and share this if it was informational to all of you. With that, thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you again soon at the Monterey Bay Aquarium. And happy seafooding out there, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you.
Bye.
Bye.